I'm Sean Hogan for FrightFest TV, and I'm here with Mitch Jenkins and Alan Moore, the director and writer of Showpieces. So, Alan, you've famously been ill-treated by the film industry, so how does Alan Moore come to make a film?
Well, yes, I have been ill-treated by the film industry, but I have tried to treat them very unpleasantly in return, so we're probably about even on that one. The thing is, I perhaps have a reputation as being somebody who is liable to go into a kind of a vilifying rant at the mere mention of cinema, but actually I quite like some films. The thing is that I've always been averse to adaptations. If you're going to take something that was clearly intended to show off the strengths of a particular medium, and then you suddenly transpose it to another medium, that's probably not going to work. This has been my point with all of the adaptations of my work, but once Mitch actually suggested maybe writing a screenplay, maybe sort of doing this film together, and when I was confident that it would be done exactly as we wanted it to do, without any kind of compromises, then it's been a really fun experience. It's been learning about a new form of expression that I would probably never have otherwise had anything to do with.
And I mean, one would assume, certainly now at least, kind of used to a high degree of control over your own work.
Oh yeah.
But the saying goes, like, film is a collaborative medium, bend over. So, so who was bending over for who on this one? How did the collaboration work?
Nobody. We I think right from the start, we decided that we wanted this to be very, very egalitarian. Right, everybody who is contributing to this is being treated with respect because they are a professional who are really, really good at what they do. We haven't got any stars. Or either that or everybody is a star.
I mean, a good idea is a good idea. And I think that's very much how we like to work.
Yeah, that's a principle to sort of to stand by, really. I mean, like if the musicians, they know more about music than we do. Yeah, I can write the lyrics, but sort of they're going to come up with these brilliant songs. All of the people that we've got, they are all really, really good. That's why they're working with us. So we're not going to sort of privilege one over the other. There's no need, and we think we get a better product doing it this way. That everybody knows that they're respected and they give it their best. It's a good kind of collaborative medium.
But it's kind of the best way to go about it if you're not paying them as well.
Yeah, that's it. Sort of, if you're not going to give people money, you probably better give them at least a little bit of respect.
And feed them, I tend to find.
Yes,
as well.
Yeah.
Although that was only largely with the caterers down at Jimmy's End Working Men's Club.
And the electricians and the grips actually left the site and went to McDonald's as soon as they were confronted with the food from the Working Men's Club.
Yeah, I mean,
it got better. It got better over the next couple of days, but
and
they were just like,
we've
we're
got
going to eat this.
all of our characters, all of our cast in full makeup, like queuing up in the main bar to receive the food, and there were these people. They looked a bit unhappy. They were sitting down the other end of the room, very dark clothing, and we were saying, "Oh, who are those people?" And they said, "Oh, that's a wake."
Because they refused to close the blooming bar. They gave us the back room to film, but they wouldn't close the bar.
So we've got all of our clowns and strippers and me, and I could see that it might have been seen as a bit inappropriate. On the other hand, it did add a certain sort of to the proceedings. But yeah, I mean, they even threw us out of our main dressing room because they'd got a Skittles match on. But that is only proper.
Yes,
it was their pub before it was our set.
It keeps it real.
It keeps it real.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've clearly got a lot to learn about the film industry if you're not throwing egotistical tantrums at all of this stuff.
That wouldn't work in Northampton. No, that you would probably end up in 3 separate carrier bags in Northampton. We've not made up the darkness in Northampton,
It's just there.
It's just there.
So how did the collaboration work? I mean, were you giving feedback on the script at an early stage? Were you on set giving him feedback on the the filming?
Well, no. The thing is that sort of, I mean, I agree in principle that people should criticise each other's work and that is constructive, but don't do it to me, because I shall just go into a kind of a tantrum or a depression or stuff like that. I'm just really, really sensitive. I'm like a flower. So basically, Mitch respects what I do as a writer. I respect what Mitch does as a director. I mean, we're both pretty good at what we do.
And the reality is, I mean, he does do the words and I do the pictures, but we spend so much time in between that, just discussing all of the different elements, how we're going to approach this. So once it's shot and we get into the post stages, it's a constant. I mean, I'm in the dark room doing all of the hard lifting, sorting out all of that, but then it's coming back, we sit down, drink numerous cups of teas, discuss, are we moving in the right direction? Is this the right emphasis that we want? So it's a complete collaboration.
Yeah.
And if it were anything other than that, I don't think either of us would really want to be involved, because it really isn't, well, I'm the director, well, I'm Alan Moore. It's like, well, no, we're actually partners and we're just doing this together.
There's no strain in this. All right, sometimes when we're sort of frustrated about not being able to get the money or stuff like that, yeah. But there's no, I don't feel any creative strain in this. This is like playing, which is what I feel that practically any form of creative activity is always at its best if it is a form of extended play. And we're just playing dress up with a lot of our mates, but we've got some very, very good camera equipment that is managing to capture that. So it's working for us, at least so far.
Because your comic scripts are famously, if not notoriously, detailed. Now, did you dial it back a bit with this in terms of writing the script, or were there very specific instructions?
Actually, I've kind of, in many ways, I mean, I did the script, and I understand that with a script, it's pretty much a page of script to a minute of screen time, and I really hoped that we've got a film. I mean, it was about 90 pages. I hope that it's going to be under 2 hours. Because anything over 2 hours, that's too long. But I don't know. I mean, hang on, I've just completely lost the question.
No, but you're talking about how much detail is put into the
screenplay. How much detail? Yeah, I mean, yes, I would have originally put in lots and lots too much detail. The amount that I put into my comics, where every molecule, if I've got someone drinking a glass of water, I'm describing the hydrogen and oxygen molecules and how they stick together. It's unnecessary. It's an illness. It's not really a craft.
We don't actually allow that anymore. I mean, that's stopped. I mean, and also I think Alan now realises that really is a waste of his time. And
I've changed the way I write comics as a result of at this late stage in my life. I've suddenly realised that I have probably, I have had a third of the sunny afternoons and walks in the park that I could have had, because I was putting in all of these details for artists who were perfectly capable of coming up with them by themselves. So I've stripped everything down now. It still seems as good.
Right. So the film itself is sort of a vision of Purgatory or something along those lines as a working men's club. And there are a lot of religious elements in it. There's seems to be a sort of God and the Devil as a nightclub duo. You've got Egyptian stuff. The whole thing even seems quite Catholic in the sort of themes of guilt and the idea that your two protagonists seem to end up in this place because of sexual desire in a way. I mean, what you don't strike me as someone who's necessarily religious. So what about these themes interests you?
Well, I mean, the thing with Jimmy's End, which was the first one that was written, this was what I was called upon was a short, self-contained 10-minute film.
Yeah.
Just something that we would do in the same setting and with the same characters as we'd done this burlesque shoot. But that ends, if you just saw that on its own, then I think you'd be pretty clear that, oh yeah, this is God and the devil, and this is some kind of antechamber to the afterlife, which is what we wanted people to think, because when the proposal was put to me to expand upon that idea, I initially said, well, no, I can't, because we've given it all away at the end of the story. There's no way you can go after that. Then I started thinking, right, what if it wasn't God and the devil? What if it was just two very naughty boys who were pretending to be God and the devil? What if it wasn't purgatory, which is the standard thing, you know, oh, with Lost, they're all dead and in purgatory, right? To which the producer said, oh, no, they're definitely not in purgatory. And then 3 years later, oh, yeah, actually they were in purgatory. Yeah, ours, they're definitely not in purgatory. It's somewhere much, much worse than that.
But it's all about those little penny drops and those little reveals. So, you know, and you know, false direction. So you're actually thinking,
And you're right, it is about guilt.
Massively.
Judgment and things like that. It's
the atonement.
Yeah, and I do tend to think that actually most of us in our hearts, we know that when we are called to judgment after this mortal life is done, it's not going to be in some kind of CGI habitat full of gods and devils. It's going to be a really disgusting working men's club from somewhere like Northampton that you went into once by mistake and hoped never to go into again. I think we all know that. That is where we go when we die. We go to Northampton. You know.
And whose idea was it to cast you as God? Or a very naughty boy pretending to be God?
You have to think, I'm the person who's writing the script, so yeah, I've got to put my hand up to that one.
No, he appeared in the original photo shoot that the whole thing was based on to start with. And then, yeah, it just carried that on.
Yeah, well, in the original photo shoot,
Eastern European.
Yeah, that was it. There was just a
trader.
picture of me with a glass of scotch standing over to one side of the frame. And Mitch was saying, right, so what's your character in this thing? And I said, well, I look like an Eastern European organ trader. And but we couldn't see a way to work Eastern European organ trader into the film successfully, so I ended up being the next best thing, which is God, of course.
Or indeed, naughty boy.
A naughty boy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you said earlier that you do actually like film as a medium.
Yeah.
I mean, what were some of the influences for you both on this? I mean, as a director and as a writer, did you look at stuff and did you reference stuff?
No, just really, really didn't. Alan, there was the screenplay. We discussed what we didn't and didn't want in the film, but we didn't want it to go and look like anyone else's. A lot of people have said, "Oh, it's very Lynchian." But I think, you know, we do have some curtains in there. I think they've got red curtains in Lynch.
But I would point out that every single film that I've ever seen has had curtains in it, except for 1 million years BC, and I think that there actually were curtains in that, but it was a continuity error. Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly Mitch would, you'd take your hat off to Alfred Hitchcock. You have a fondness for him.
I have a fondness for him. I don't think we've necessarily sort of like achieved any kind of stylistic sort of like.
We've got a tormented blonde.
We do have a tormented
which
blonde.
is quite
a breathless blonde.
Yeah, a breathless blonde. I mean, like, when I was thinking about it, I mean, the films that I really like are, I really love Cocteau, I really love L'Orfeo, and one of the things that we said right from the very beginning was no CGI. CGI is the death of the imagination. All it means is that you can have anything conceivable if you've got enough money. That takes away from Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen and all of those genuine magicians and artists. But sort of our decision not to have CGI, that was partly born of the bit in Orfeo where you've got the man reaching into a mirror which, yeah, you know how they'd do that these days. It'd be CGI and it would look really spectacular.
A tray of mercury.
Yeah, a tray of mercury, and he turned the camera on his side. That is magic. That is genius. And so this is what we've tried to do. No CGI, no non-diegetic sound. We're not being all dogma about this, because that's just silly. You know, there's no need to make a big thing of it, but we've got certain values that we are kind of determined to stick to, and it seems to be working so far.
So you're here at FrightFest, the biggest horror festival in the UK, and whilst what you've done isn't strictly horror, it's certainly like kissing cousin to it. It's, you know, it's dark, it's strange, it's weird. I mean, and you're not often talked about as a horror writer, but you've written a lot of stuff over the years that's kind of has at least one foot in the genre. You know?
I've done some what you'd call horror writing. I've done a lot more of what you'd call horrible writing. I believe that I'm a bit funny about genres, because I don't think that life's like that. Life is a kind of collision of 7 or 8 different genres pretty much every 5 minutes. I think that it's always good, if you're doing a comedy, have some elements of horror in that. They will offset the comedy beautifully. The same goes if you're doing horror. Put some good gags in. Put some tender moments. Mix it up, because that way it will be as affecting as real life itself. Horror, one of the things we haven't got in it, there's no blood, there's not much in the way of violence. It's psychological violence rather than anything physical.
Rather than actual.
You know, it's which, given the kind of the saturation of physical violence these days, where you can show absolutely anything imaginable happening to a human body, and in fact the more inventive you are about your ways to completely destroy and eviscerate people, the more you'll be applauded. I think that that's cheating. I think that we don't mind physical horror because we're more comfortable about it than the other sort. I think that emotional and psychological horror, that gets to us in a way that we don't always like. So that's the areas that we probably intend to focus upon.
But are either of you fans of the genre at all? Is there anything, you know, I mean, believe you're writing a comic series at the moment that's very Lovecraftian.
Providence, yeah. I mean, yeah, I love the best of the genre. But that's like, you know, you ask me what films I like, I say Cocteau. If you were to ask me what current films I like, I might have more trouble. You know, that's not to say that there aren't current films that are brilliant. But it's like with a lot of the horror stories these days, they tend to be formulaic. They tend to not be trying to do anything new. And I think that's a big thing about why we're so enthusiastic about this, because this feels genuinely new. It feels fresh.
Well, it's certainly new to us. I mean, that is for sure. Just having this approach to it, trying to keep all intellectual property rights, you know, funding it without having to sort of like give the money back, which kind of works and enables us to have editorial control.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So in that regard, where do you go from here? So now that showpieces and the show, the final thing is done. You know, is this the beginning of something? I mean, you've done this you've stayed resolutely independent, you've crowdfunded it. Is this the only way you think you can work in this industry, or are you looking to sort of go more, you know, dip your toes deeper into the industry?
We don't want to do anything which will compromise our stated initial position.
Yeah.
No, we're not giving up any intellectual rights, and we're not giving up any editorial control. But
it's going to make it more difficult for us. But that said, you know, we will cut our cloth accordingly. And rather than saying, oh, we need 5 million or 10 million to make a feature film, we'll realistically look at it. And Pete, our producer, you know, he always starts every sort of like conversation is, you know, how close to free of charge can you get? That's more difficult when we sort of like move on to feature films because it's a big chunk of people's times. But we will cut our cloth, and if we aren't using CGI and we're not having to pay for massively expensive locations, I think we can get a realistic amount of money and follow the model we've had so far, which will be just talking to people who are keen to come on board. I think as soon as you go into the mainstream, then we've already had that. You know, we had one distribution company wanted to come on board and get involved. Their first thing is, yeah, great, we already want 80% of all of the revenue from your DVD. 80%, really? They're having a laugh? They would have done nothing. All they'll do is put their logo on it and put it in a shot. I mean, at that point you think, I don't really want to go down that route. Don't get me wrong, we'd like to be involved with people, but we want to be involved with people who are really up for it, who are interested and like the project. And we in turn will, you know, will work really hard to bring a film in on budget and not take the piss.
Well, I mean, I think that with these 5 short films that we've done, that is how long altogether? An hour and 45 minutes?
Just under an hour and 45.
Yeah. I mean, that's feature film length. We've done that for about 120 grand.
About 200.
About 200?
Yeah, it was 200. Just because if you think that we did 100 on Jimmy's,
then we
did 45
about 200.
Yeah, about 200
Which, given that film budgets these days can be 200 million, I think that...
that's a micro-budget film, that's
it is, and yet it doesn't look like one.
No.
The level of the cinematography that Mitch brings to it, it's as beautiful and as beautifully photographed as anything that you're going to see from the big studios, and it is quite well written. I mean, we've kind of got, our theory is that there is a direct inverse relationship between money and imagination. If you have got tons and tons of imagination and ideas, you don't actually need that much money. If you haven't got any ideas or any imagination, you need a potentially infinite amount of money, and it's still not going to be a good film, because no matter how distractingly pretty and visually exciting it is, it's going to be a bedrock of rubbish. We believe in human talent. That was what the initial cinema was built upon. It wasn't always purely a technical extravaganza. A lot of movies these days, it's almost like, well, the way that they say that sports has become a competition between drug companies, that you could say much the same about films, in that they are competing between different makes of camera or different processes for 3D or this or that. It's purely technologically driven. We think that we should be using technology rather than the other way around. I mean, we're not technophobic, we just believe in using things appropriately. And, you know, so there is that sort of, there's that pit that it is possible to fall into, and I think that we're avoiding that by taking this very sort of strict, hardline kind of Stalinist Khmer Rouge year zero approach to filmmaking.
And so you've created this world in these 5 interlinked short films. So the plan is to go back to that and do more projects based around this?
Well, the screenplay Alan's already written is what happens the next day. And so we've set everything up. You know, we've got Faith, we've got James, you know, there's a great deal of atonement. But we want to know what happens the next day. What happens the next day is a real fast-paced thriller. It isn't the degree of self-indulgence we've been able to sort of like bring to short films. And you can, because, you know, it's a short film. Just do what you want, can't you? But the feature film that Alan's written starts the next day, what happens to these characters. And it is a fast-paced, kind of surreal thriller. So yeah,
It still has the same atmosphere, at least in part, as the Jimmy's End cycle, the showpieces. But yes, it is constructed differently, and it's basically the story that we always intended to tell.
yeah,
That all of these short films will be building up to, and yeah, in the course of that film, yeah, we tell a complete story, and we also introduce all of these absolutely irresistible characters
they really are.
that you don't get to see a great deal of, but just enough to make you want to see more. This is our plan for getting the television series. I think that people will bow to our will eventually.
Well, I think I should probably leave it on that note. So, best of luck with that, and I'll look forward to seeing everyone bow to your will.
Thank you very
Cheers,
much.
don't mind.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
gents.
Cheers.
Thank you.